Unless we spend too much time following Joel Seedman, here's a hint, don't follow Joel Seedman. We probably want to squat deeper. It's a very common question I get in the weight room, and there's a couple things that we can do to really improve our squat depth, either immediately or over time. So today I'm gonna go through a couple of those techniques, some things that we can try to maybe immediately improve our squat depth, and if that doesn't work, I'll give you some tools that you can use to identify why you can't squat deeper and apply those over time. So first off, if you can't squat that deep, it probably looks something like this. Maybe it feels like you have too much weight going backwards and you can't seem to settle into that squat like lots of other people seem to be able to do really effortlessly. Like this. So how do we get from that position where we're sort of teeter-tottering back and forth to a really comfortable deep squat like this? One of the most immediate things we can do to improve our squat depth is take a look at our stance. So this varies for different people, but I'm gonna use myself as an example because I'm right here. For me, if I squat with too wide of a stance, my hips limit my range of motion, and I can get to about here before my hips physically stop me from going lower. Now, if I was used to doing that and I wanted to squat deeper, it would just take a couple tries where I realize a more narrow stance allows me to keep my feet flat on the floor and get really deep into this squat. Now, I will say most of my clients actually have the opposite problem. If they go too narrow, it really limits them, and if they go a little bit wider, it allows them to go deeper. So there isn't one size that fits all for this. You have to kind of mess around with different stances and see where you can get the deepest. That's step one. If we've noticed that our ankles are the limiting factor and we found our ideal squat width, there's another thing that we can do so we can start training at a greater depth until we build that additional mobility. Let's take a look. So here I took two 10-pound plates and I'm gonna prop my heels up. And as I drop into my squat, I'm far less limited by ankle mobility while I can still keep weight on my heels. So this would allow me to start to train this greater depth without waiting for sometimes the longer period of time where we can start to build some of this ankle mobility. So one of the most common mobility restrictions is lack of ankle dorsiflexion. And dorsiflexion is the motion where the top of my foot and my shin are getting closer together. If this is particularly lacking, as your knee starts to come over the toe, you may find that your heel lifts up. That's why propping the heels up with plates, like I showed you earlier, will be great as a temporary fix. But some of us want to develop this a little more long-term. So one tool we can use is a kettlebell here. And throughout this motion, I'm gonna do my best to keep my heel flat on this box. But I'm gonna let the weight of the kettlebell drive my knee forward. Now you might notice that I'm a little bit gifted in this particular mobility movement. Some of you may have a starting point that's quite a bit further back, and that's just fine. Go as far as you can while that heel stays in contact with the box. As you go, it might benefit you to break this down into three slightly different motions. One where you go a little bit over the big toe, but still keep that heel flat. One straight along the front of the foot. And one that goes over the pinky toe. If one of those is more restricted than the others, you're gonna wanna spend more time working on that than on those other motions. More often than not, the problem is ankle dorsiflexion, but there are definitely some people who lack hip mobility to be able to drop into that deep squat. Something that I like to do to try to ease into that deeper hip flexion and a little bit of external rotation is an elevated pigeon. So we'll use that same box and we'll drop our shin across the box in front of us. Now at first, you might have to have a sharper angle at the knee, but as you go, getting your shin a little more perpendicular to your body is ideal. And from here, we're gonna drop into it and allow ourselves to really stretch that glute and hamstring region, much like the angle of your femur against your upper body deep in that squat. You can do series of this exercise as well, while you also work on the ankle dorsiflexion to help develop some of that mobility that'll help us get deeper into that squat with a bit more comfort and stability. So let's say that we don't have any of those hard restrictions in terms of our ankle dorsiflexion or our hip mobility. It might be a matter of just developing comfort and strength at the sharper joint angles so we can squat deeper. So something that I really like to do when we're working on deeper squats are pause squats. So what you want to do is treat this like a different exercise. I don't want you to load this up similar to how you would load a regular back squat. Treat this as something entirely new so we can really use it to develop strength and a range of motion where you might be a little bit lacking. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna brace like you normally would and drop really deep into that squat and challenge that range of motion. If you are limited for ankle mobility, go ahead and prop up those heels, but still squat with tension as deep as you can get. What I mean by that, I can squat deeper than that, but I lose some of the tension. What you'll see, if I brace hard, I can get to about here with tension. If I release that tension, I'll sink lower without having consistent posture. And that's just not how we want to load this motion. So make sure to brace hard, maintain that rigidity through your spine, and start to pause at those deeper joint angles where you probably lack a little bit of strength relative to the rest of the motion.